डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन युनिव्हर्सिटी.
Namaskar. I, Dr. Khushbu Jadhav, Assistant Professor, Management, welcomes you at Chaitanya Studio, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University. Students, today we are going to discuss Unit number 3, Primary and Secondary Data of the subject Research Methodology, MBA Semester 2. The code is MBA02C204. Now look at the points that we are going to discuss today. In this lecture, we are going to discuss what is the meaning of data, what is called data collection, and there are different types of data collection techniques and data types that we are going to learn today. So students, in the simple terms, what we can understand by the term data. In the previous lecture, in the previous chapter, you have studied the different research designs, each with its own characteristics, disadvantage, uses and methodologies. Though the designs vary in their approaches towards undertaking a research study, there is one thing that you have seen common across all them. So what is this? Obviously that is data. And data is at the heart of the research. Now let's understand the meaning of data. In simple terms, you can say that data is a collection of facts. So what data generally includes? It includes such as numbers, words, measurement, observations, or even just descriptions of the things. It comprises of facts or figures to be processed that may include evidence, records, statistics, etc., from which conclusions can be inferred. If we talk about the field of statistics, data are individual pieces of factual information recorded and uses for the purpose of analysis. So for any analysis, we need some information, and that information is called the data. So it is the raw information from which the statistics are created and the results of data analysis, its interpretation and presentation. So data is very much useful in all contexts, we can say. Now the definition. Data can be defined as the quantitative or qualitative values of a variable. So data can be of both form. It can be of quantitative, it can be of qualitative. So quantitative includes the figures and numbers, and qualitative includes just the description of the information. So data is thought to be the lowest unit of information from which the other measurement and analysis can be done. Data can be numbers, images, words, figures, facts, or ideas. Data in itself cannot be understood, and to get information from the data, one must interpret it into meaningful information. Like if I have some data, but before getting some meaningful information, I cannot understand the exact meaning of that data. So what is exactly the useful of the data, that I cannot understand. So for this purpose, one must interpret the information into some meaningful way. Data collection, we can say that it is a process of gathering and measuring information on variable of interest in an established systematic fashion that enables one to answer stated research question, test hypothesis and evaluate outcomes. So generally the data, we can say it is a process, but process what include? It generally includes of gathering and measuring the information. And the data collection component of research is common to all the fields of studying. So we can say that it can be of physical, it can be of social science, it can be of humanities, business, but in all fields the data, or we can say the research, can be same way. While methods vary may be different by the discipline, by what we are going to emphasize, that ensures accurate and honest collection remains the same. Now students, now the 3.2, that is data collection techniques and data types. So there are different types of techniques by which we can collect the data. So various techniques can be used by different persons, by maybe on it depends on the uses, it may be depend on the information, and in same way there are different types of data. Generally, the types of data are primarily determined by the nature of the data and the techniques through which the data have been collected, and this also collects with the types of data sources. So based on the nature of data and its form of existence, data can be classified as qualitative and quantitative. So students, just we have discussed this, what is qualitative and what is quantitative data. Now we will understand in some meaningful way. So first we will discuss the qualitative data. What is the meaning of qualitative data? So qualitative data is the data which describes qualities or characteristics. So it generally focuses on the qualities and characteristics. They are measure of types and may be represented by, it can be by name, it can be by symbol or number code. So they explain what type of data and are usually categorical variables, and data collected about a categorical variable will always be qualitative. So generally the qualitative data are maybe in the information way, maybe in a theoretical way. While what is quantitative data? So quantitative data, it is data which can be counted. So it maybe means how much, how many, how often. So this all answers we can get in the number. So quantitative data are the data that that defines the number, that depicts the numbers, means the numerical value, numerical variable. So this is called the quantitative data. Now the data type. So first data type is primary data. It is the original data collected specifically for a definite purpose. The data has been collected from the data sources firsthand and either by a human or a machine. So this is very important to understand. It is the original data collected specially for a definite purpose. So defined purpose is already we know, and this data is collected from the data source firsthand, which we are getting for the first time. Either it may be either by a human or it can be from a machine. It has yet not been published and is more reliable. So this is also very important. It has not been published yet at anywhere, and this data is most reliable, most timely and authentic, and it has not been altered, hence its validity is greater than secondary data. So if we can compare secondary data and primary data is validity of primary data is greater than the secondary data. Why? Because it has not been altered. The sources of primary data are selected specifically to meet the demands of the requirements, like what we want to research, what we want to know. On that basis, the data can be gathered. So the sources may be depend on that. Prior to choosing a data collection source, things like the aim of the research, what are our target population, that needs to be identified. Primary data collection methods. So there are mainly two major ways of collecting primary data, either by observing the people, or we can say the situation, or by interacting with them or asking the questions. So these are the main two ways. So the techniques which can be used to interact with the people and gather primary data are interviews, focus groups, surveys, expert interviews. And observation includes the use of either machines or people to observe and collect data. So if we want to if we are using the observation method, we can observe the people, we can observe the people and by or machine, and we can get the data. Now the second form is interviews. So a method of data collection involving two people or group of people. One asks the question, that is interviewer, and the other replies, that is interviewee. These interviews are normally held in person but can also be done in telephones through and increasingly on an internet enabled platform. Now we can see that any person can give the interview via telephone also, that is we can call telephonic interview. So it is highly critical that the responses of the interview can be captured, like the interviews should be recorded. So whenever any person goes for the interview, so that interview is recorded. So what is the reason? Although with the permission of the interview, and the interview is also knowing that the my interview is going to be recorded. So at the same time, the interviewer should also take down the notes. So what is the advantage of this recording? So an audio visual recording is also useful in observing body language. So when we can see the other person in front of us, so we can see the body language of the other person, we can observe them, we can see their facial expressions and the non-verbal cues. And telephonic interview should be resorted to when it is not physically possible to conduct a personal interview. So when there is some limitations where you cannot come personally, or where you cannot go for the interview physically, so in that cases sometimes telephonic interviews are going to be held. So generally when the numbers of questions are not too many, generally 2-4 main questions, basic questions, that simply the questions they want to ask, that is very important for them, so generally they start asking that question. And when the responses to the questions tend to be more or less standardized, so generally the answers in the same way, like the answers they want to know can be more or less standardized. If the responses are complex and unpredictable, if the responses can only be acquired, then probing, leading, and if the quantum of the data is to be collected is pretty large, so sometimes this types of data is very much useful in these cases. Now the advantages. So what is the advantage of this? So in-depth information can be obtained from this. Maybe the response rate can be higher from this. Ambiguities can be clarified. If there are some confusions, that can be removed. Cross checking can be possible and can be used to verify. Authenticity, that is very much important. Complex aspects. So which are the complex aspects? That is such technical skills, emotions, feelings, and some personal experience can be wonderfully captured here. Non-response and response bias can be detected. So sometimes we can give the answer, sometimes we are not able to give the answer, so both can be detected, and samples can be controlled. In same ways, some of the data disadvantages are there. So it is a time consuming and labor intensive, because if we compare, so time is very much time is using, and it is labor intensive also, like we have to work upon that. Same way it is expensive also. It requires an expert interviewer. So whenever the interview is going to be held, we have to call the expert person to take the interview. Chances of interviewer bias are high. Sometimes what happens, like my opinion for some point is different, your opinion for some point is different, so there may be bias, means bias ratio can be high, like the opinion of person to person can be differ. Difficult to ensure confidentiality. In same way, there are some limitations of geographical. And the last one, respondents may be unwilling to interact with the stranger. Sometimes what happens, okay, the person is very much not going to answer the what they are going to be asked. So sometimes what happening, they are not ready to give the answer to the strangers. A variant of personal interviewing is expert interviews. So here the respondent is an expert in the subject of the study. So the expertise of that person may be due to experience, may be due to expertise or positions. For example, in order to understand the future e-vehicles rather than ask common people, it makes sense to interview the senior top managers of major automobile manufacturing companies. Students, we can see that now the selling of e-vehicles are increasing day by day. So by asking a layman, we can directly ask the senior or top managers of the automobile manufacturing company, so we can get the proper response. Now the surveys and questionnaires. They involve forming a group of questions to which the respondents submits the answer, and the questionnaire as a tool is perhaps the most widely used tool for collecting primary data. So students, this is very important. Whenever we are going to research, we are going to collect the data for some research purpose. So surveys and questionnaire it is a basic method, and maximum response we can expect from this. A pilot study is carried out before finalizing the questionnaire to identify any errors, or we can say weaknesses, and the surveys can be carried out online and can be from offline. Now, what are the advantages? Respondents have adequate time to respond, like we have to give the time in particular time period. Now, free from interviewer bias, so it is very much common. Economical compared to personal interviewing, and very effective for a large sample size. When you are going to conduct research on a large base, the sample size is huge, so in that way it is very much advantageous. In same way, there are some disadvantages, like it is time consuming. In same way, inflexibility is there. Questionnaire cannot be changed once the survey begins. So once the survey begins, you cannot change the question, like you are conducting a survey on same questionnaire, so you cannot ask different question to different persons for some same research. Then high rate of non-response, it may be possible that for your research some people are not ready to give the answer and probing is difficult. Now the FGD, that is focus group discussion. FGDs vary from interviews in that they involve more participants and the focus is on discussions and interaction rather than the questions and answers. So here the typical FGD will involve a focus group. It may be comprised of 8 to 12 participants who are representative of the target population of the study, and the duration of the discussion generally it is from 90 to 120 minutes. So what is the advantage of this in focus group discussion? So taking note during the discussion is a must, but to ensure that nothing is lost in collecting and translation. So it is now a practice to record the entire transaction. So sometimes happens that we forget something to note down. So by recording, or now a practice to record to entire session is possible, and the recording can then be played multiple times to capture the correct words through a systematic transcriptions of the entire discussion. So in this basis we can say that FGDs are the best suited to gain insights into the domain of the study. So what are the types? So it may be of two ways, means the first group answers the questions posed by the moderator, and the second group which is watching and listening what the first group is thinking and saying, and they can join later and is able to facilitate more discussion, and potentially they can draw the different conclusion, depends on their idea. Now the dual moderator. So instead of one moderator, the FGD is facilitated by two moderators, and the first one ensures the group session that is progressively smooth goingly, and the second one, that is mostly the senior of the two, they ensures that the all intended question they are going to ask and the topics are discussed adequately. Next one is dueling moderator. So a variant of the dual moderator, this involves two moderators with one playing the devil's advocate, in the sense that both the moderators take up an alternative viewpoint from each other. They start taking sides with the participants with the opposite and different point of view, and the purpose of this dueling moderators focus group is to facilitate and to give the introduction to new ways of thinking and varying viewpoints, like people have different their opinions, so they can share that. Now the respondent moderator. To avoid the unintentional bias, one or more of the participants in the group assumes the role of a moderator for some time, and this is done to change the dynamics of the group and generate more varied response. Like I have to assume I am a moderator, I am playing a role of moderator for some time. So this can change the dynamics of the group and it can generate more varied response from the people. The next one is mini focus group. It is a focus group which consists of fewer participants, very fewer, usually we can say 4 or 5 participants. So it creates more intimate environment for the discussions. So which is essentially in discussing sensitive issues. So they can discuss in the group. So online focus group participants respond and they can share the information through online, means like they can they can do teleconferencing or they can do video conference also. What are the advantage of this? So cost effective way of obtaining information is if we can compare to individual interview. Here the participant can listen to the responses of other participants. Another thing, more data are gathered. Why? Because participants are given the opportunity to rebut each other. Compared to quantitative surveys, these groups are able to gather more information about the perceptions, attitudes and experience of the people. In same way, some disadvantages. Here the group dynamics such as group thinking may inhibit the discussion. Sometimes we face the difficulty in managing the groups. The shy participants, or we can say introverts participants, may feel overpowered and intimidated by assertive participants. So they can be give more argument and they can do more power, like our opinion is too strong. This can introduce bias and affect the end result. So it is very much important, like the bias generally leads to the negative response. So analysis of data may be time consuming and challenging, and group culture may intimidate or fail to energize participants. So sometimes it happens. Now the observation. So it is a way of collecting data through observation. In almost all cases, the researcher has to immerse himself in the physical setting where the respondents are. Hence, it is a participatory form of research. So we have to observe. So in observation method, what happens? generally we are going to observe, and on that basis we are going to do our research. And observation can be a structured way also, it can be of unstructured. For example, one may count the number of cars crossing a particular intersection at a given time of the day for estimating traffic control requirements. How many cars are passing through the next road. Unstructured observation does not have any predetermined variables, like standing in a supermarket to understand the buying patterns of the customers. So, how many customers are daily visiting? So, it is called the unstructured observation. Now, the techniques of observation, major techniques of observation, that is naturalistic observation, participants observation, and control observation. So, these three major techniques that we are going to discuss in the next lecture, and the remaining point that will be discussed in the next lecture. Thank you.
स्वाध्यायः परमम्